What's cooking, everybody? Welcome back to the O Show podcast, episode 462. We are presented by Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale, Arizona. Mayweather Boxing and Fitness is an inclusive, high-intensity fitness experience developed by the champ Floyd Money Mayweather himself, formulated with the perfect combination of boxing, strength, and cardio conditioning intervals designed to make you look good, feel good, and leave you with more than just a great sweat. Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale, Arizona. We're also sponsored by BetOnline.ag. Sign up for your 50% bonus using the promo code capital BLEAV50 to sign up for that 50% bonus. Week 15 of the NFL this week. Our guest today knows a little bit about sports. He's a sports broadcaster at Full Sail University, the Dan Patrick School of Broadcasting, Mr. Alphonso McCree Jr. That is one hell of a name, man.
Appreciate that.
I got to give you credit. It's way better than Jack O'Hara.
No, your name's pretty dope, man. Your name's pretty dope.
Well, I appreciate it. It's too sweet. We were talking about pro wrestling before we came on, about some of the events. You went to 3 Manias, you said?
Yeah, my first one was Wrestlemania 28. That was Rock versus Cena 1.
In Miami, wow. Dude, Triple H versus Taker inside Hell in a Cell, that's arguably still, to this day, my favorite wrestling match ever.
I think like one of the best wrestling spots of all time when Shawn Michaels super kicks Undertaker right into a pedigree and then Taker kicks out the entire stadium. I mean, I'll never forget that. The entire stadium just went crazy. And I was like, this is the craziest crowd I've ever been a part of. And then I went to WrestleMania 33. That was in Orlando.
That one was amazing too.
It was pretty decent. There were some matches that missed, but the ones that hit definitely hit pretty well.
Okay, you had the Hardy Boys return, which blew the roof off the joint. Obviously, Taker Reigns in the main event did not hit.
No, not at all.
I don't think Triple H Rollins kind of lived up to the expectation either. I thought that had the potential to be the main event too, with the way the storyline went.
Well, with that match specifically, I thought it would have gone over better in a smaller arena. Because when you have a big stadium like that, you got to do stuff to keep everybody's attention. You're trying to keep the attention of 70,000 people, whereas in an arena, it's like 10,000, and it's much tighter. Everybody's closer, and you can see better. There were a lot of things that I felt like they were telling great stories throughout, but it just, number one, Triple H matches sometimes tend to go on a little bit too long. That's a well-known fact. But even besides that, it was just, I don't know, it was something off about it. I was looking forward to it a lot, but it's something that didn't necessarily hit about it.
I mean, Jericho Owens, I thought, could have been one of the main events too, and they put him on second in a U.S. title match.
That one should have been for the Universal Championship.
100%. I mean, they had to go with the big money Lesnar Goldberg shtick.
That didn't need the title. That didn't need the title at all.
Arguable if you're Vince, big money draw, big title match, and then Lesnar goes on to be the champion for a year and a half and defended it like 4 times.
Yeah,
it was brutal.
It was a weird time in wrestling, man. It's just a weird time in wrestling.
I don't know. Looking back at this year, this could have been the best year in recent memory for professional wrestling all around. I mean, you look at everything that happened. Obviously, the crowd comes back. Edge main events WrestleMania, Lesnar returns, Lynch returns, CM Punk returns in AEW, Bryan and Adam Cole debut in AEW. There was a lot of big events that happened this year. Roman Reigns still as the tribal chief kicking ass like nobody thought he ever would. John Cena's return at Money in the Bank. Like, you can go on and on and on about this stuff. Like, I thought it was a very good year for professional wrestling, despite what some people might think. There's always going to be people who nitpick at the bookings for both brands, But I thought overall it was a very good year. I don't know what you thought.
I 100% agree with you, especially because the balance, the true balance of power has finally come to fruition between WWE and AEW. Whereas last year and the year before that, AEW was still kind of just getting off the ground. They had Dynamite going, but they were still trying to gain viewers and popularity. This year was the first year where they were cracking 7 figures in viewership consistently. And I'm like, man, that's so good for wrestling, period. I know some hardcore WWE guys. Oh, WWE can't do anything wrong. Anything that's anti-WWE, we're not about it. I'm like, if you really change your perspective, AEW is not anti WWE. All AEW is going to do potentially is make WWE better because
Mm-hmm.
they have to step their game up. You should be thanking AEW for existing because without them, no pressure is put on WWE to improve themselves. I mean, it's
No.
just they can just coast, but now they can't.
And they have some huge talent that came their way. I mean, Punk's return alone, like who's to say a year from now that'll have any heat on it, but like just him returning alone after 7 years, all of a sudden like AEW you got to watch every week. Then Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole debut on the exact same night within 2 minutes of each other.
Yeah,
Like Bryan Danielson, huge WWE guy, still to this day like says he loved his time in WWE, but even he had to leave.
yeah.
Like that's
Uh,
saying something.
just he loves pro wrestling, and he doesn't really love sports entertainment necessarily.
No.
And I totally understand. Um, and he wants more creative freedom, um, less pressure, put on himself to meet expectations that he doesn't feel comfortable with. Whereas now that he's in AEW, Tony Khan is known for giving his talent a little bit more creative freedom than WWE does.
Just a
Uh,
smidge.
just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Uh, they have more input on where their stories go, where their characters go, and you see it play out on screen because these guys really. It feels like they're living their gimmicks. Where in WWE, it doesn't feel like really anybody there except maybe Roman is living their gimmick. Like
And it took
that's who.
like 8 years to do because they
Yeah,
finally let him be himself
yeah.
as a heel, which they never wanted either.
I mean, but see what they fail to realize is that heels nowadays get cheered more than baby faces in a lot of cases because they're more interesting. I've never seen two heels that are exactly the same. I've seen a lot of baby faces that are exactly the same. And
Mm.
that's the difference. Audiences they don't want the same thing over and over again. Roman Reigns reminded them of John Cena. As soon as that happens, you have to change that because they even if they don't hate John Cena, they're going to hate you for either trying to be him, or the ones that hated John Cena are going to hate you for trying to be him. There's no good way to go about that. You have to stand out and be different. This tribal chief thing is one of the best gimmicks I've seen in wrestling in years.
So the last thing we'll touch on in pro wrestling to start the show is your prediction for day one: Reigns, Lesnar in the main event for the Universal title. I feel like you kind of are itching towards Paul Heyman, kind of setting up Brock Lesnar and turning on him, and then of course he's going back to Reigns. I thought that breakup was way too fast.
Yeah. And another thing is they've been money together. There's no reason to permanently break them up.
Yeah.
So I expect to be swerved. I hope to be swerved here. And I hope Heyman turns on Lesnar, similar to how he did, Survivor Series 2002, Madison Square Garden, Brock Lesnar, Big Show, and Heyman just turns on Lesnar, and the crowd's like, "Oh my God, no way!" And then Big Show wins the championship and stuff. I love stuff like that. I really do. Like if you can get the crowd like what the f, you know what I mean? Like that's what you're looking for right there. I think they're gonna pull the trigger on it. It's Paul
Yeah.
Heyman we're talking about here, So
Creative genius.
yeah,
I'm stunned that they let him go for being a creative insight on Raw. I remember like it was going to be Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff, the two running Raw and SmackDown behind the scenes, and that was scrapped within like 3 weeks.
that was tough. That was a tough time in wrestling. It seems like WWE couldn't do anything right at that time. But
Zach, you
I'm glad.
have those NWO pictures of Alfonso? There he is. What is this from? Is this Halloween?
All right, so a story behind this. I lived in Italy for 3 years as part of my military service in the Air Force, and we lived 45 minutes away from Venice. Now, that mask you see is called a Afropunk mask. They used to wear it back in the day, like centuries ago. Um, Venezia Carnivale, which is Venice Carnival.
Right.
It's they put on every year, and they all wear masks and things like that. So I saw that one in the store, and me and that mask just connected like on a deep level. And actually, if you don't mind, let me show you something. I'll just take the sweater off. I actually loved it so much.
Oh my God.
Got it
You
tattooed
really
on.
do love pro wrestling.
Yeah,
You weren't joking.
yeah. So I fell in love with that mask immediately. It was almost like a super villain seeing their mask with like Killmonger and Black Panther when he saw that mask in the museum and he just grabbed it. That was me in that one. I was like, man, I feel really good about this
What,
one.
Michael B. Jordan's character?
Yeah.
The bad guy in the movie? I always thought he was the good guy in that movie. I was always rooting for Michael B. Jordan in that movie. He was wronged as a kid.
Was speaking some truth. He was speaking some truth, but overall, the way he was carrying out his stuff was, I don't even know if I would say it was wrong because
A lot of people would have reacted the same way.
yeah, I think I would have. So I don't know, but I mean, T'Challa was pure. I guess he was more pure. I don't know, pure is a word, but more pure. He
Yeah,
was, just yeah. But I mean,
more of a
Killmonger was the
baby
heel
face.
that you cheer for in WWE. You're like,
That's
oh,
right.
Killmonger, yes, we want him to win. Yeah, but
He was the tribal chief in that movie.
yeah, he was, wasn't he?
They acknowledged him, man. But you just touched on it, though. United States Air Force, man. First of all, thank you for your service. But how did you go about doing that? Because you were there for what, like 6.5 years?
Yeah, 6.5 years. Long story. Basically just couldn't afford college and had to figure something out. Um, and before I went into the Air Force, I was at Prince George's Community College, it's about 30 minutes from here, and I was doing TV production and things like that. So I knew what my overall passion was, but didn't have the money to do it. So I go into the Air Force at 19. Um, first time living outside of my parents' house. Obviously, I just graduated a year before that, and the first time, just really being on my own, out of the state and things like that. I started off in South Carolina as my first duty station, so it was a long road. I worked as a weapons troop. I would load bombs, missiles, live ammunition, chaff flare. Um, it was a scary job sometimes. My body pays the price for it on a daily basis, but at the end of the day, I'm still kind of happy that I did it. I met amazing people. I traveled the world. I've been to Africa. I've been to Japan. I've been to Korea. I've been all over Europe, Slovenia, Croatia. Uh, I got to go to Pompeii, which was like a childhood dream of mine. So, like, everything the military did wrong, like it was erased at that point. I'm like, I am standing on Mount Vesuvius right now. This is unbelievable. But it was more of just a way to make ends meet for myself, and I was motivated by my parents to do it, and overall, I'm glad I did it. It taught me a lot of things like punctuality, professionalism, how to be places on time. I was waiting in the lobby for this meeting at least 5 minutes early. You know what I mean? But like I do that because the military trained me to do that. It's like ingrained in me now because of them. Um, so yeah, long 6.5 years.
I was gonna say
Very.
6.5 years is a very long time. What was the final decision? Was it just time to leave, or
I wasn't happy anymore.
yeah?
Um, falling into depression, anxiety, different things like that. Also, I had my son, and something just didn't sit right with me about potentially missing Christmas because I was deployed. You know, um,
Mm,
he's awesome. He's 2 now. Uh, he's learning all these words and stuff, and I don't want to miss any of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so it was partly that, and then just partly like I realized I thought I was destined for something even bigger, which is no shade to the Air Force, but it just wasn't. My journey wasn't leading me on that path anymore
right.
for me to um, go my separate ways from that environment.
But you always knew that you wanted to get into broadcast television per se, right? Like you always wanted to try that out because now you're at Full Sail University. How's that going, by the way? The whole Dan Patrick School of Broadcasting. I hear that's just a trip.
I encourage anybody who wants to do anything in TV. I don't care what it is. It could be news reporting. It
Yeah.
doesn't have it doesn't have to be anything to do with sports. I encourage them to come to the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting because everything that they teach you there can translate into regular news, um, podcasting, it just anything you want to do in television or radio, you can do it. I've done so much stuff. I met so many people. I've met Dan Patrick, shook his hand. Uh, Jay Harris from Sports Center, I have his email. We talk. Not to mention, the stuff that doesn't even have to do specifically with my program, like the WWE stuff. Getting to go into the performance center and work there is insane. And like I said, when you see Shawn Michaels walking past you and you're like, holy crap, this is my favorite wrestler of
The
all time.
showstopper, man, Mr. Main Event.
Yeah, man. It's it's amazing. I've been getting a lot of opportunities. Um, I think the biggest thing for me is that I always knew I had this talent of speaking and talking in front of the camera. I've never seen a mirror that I didn't like. You know what I mean? Like my confidence is through the roof in myself and my abilities. And for a while, the only people that could see that was me and my wife. But now that I'm out of the military and I'm at this school and I'm doing these things, everybody's getting a chance to see what I can do. We did a Pop Warner has their Super Bowl every year. This year it was in Orlando. So there was a bracket reveal show that needed to be done. ESPN did it last year, but Pop Warner gave it to us at the school this year, and we did it, and they loved it. Not only did they love it, but my program director, his name is Gus Ramsey. He's an amazing human being, amazing supervisor, amazing program director, everything. He calls me a couple days later. He's like, "Hey, Alfonso, just wanted to let you know, I just got off the phone with the tennis channel, and they said they really liked you, and they're going to be looking at you." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, that it just. I'm grateful for where I'm at now. I'm extremely blessed. I'm like living in the moment. I'm for the first time in a long time. I'm just here, and I'm loving life. I'm loving the pursuit of what I'm doing, and I'm loving the people that I'm meeting along the way. Um, I was really excited when you emailed me and I checked out, your podcast on YouTube. I forgot the gentleman's name, but I watched the episode with the guy from American Ninja Warrior,
That's honestly
and
one of the favorite episodes, DC Banks.
yeah, he's cool, man. He's cool. I loved his vibe and everything like that, and I love the whole vibe of the podcast. I was like, man, this is like the stuff you guys were talking about. I was like, okay, we're on the same frequency here. Like I wanna get in on that. So it was no hesitation for me saying yes when you invited me on. But it's just I don't know. I could go on and on, man. I'm blessed. I'm blessed as hell. That's all I'll say. I'm
See,
just
you could
it,
tell this is what you were meant to do, man. Like you just sound like I just tell on the bass of your voice, just talking to you now, how much you love doing this. And it seems like a great community too at Full Sail in that school of broadcasting. And didn't Dan Patrick kind of critique some of your work on his show, from what I saw?
it did. I posted it on my Instagram. It was the first time I'd ever gotten feedback from him, and it was just all positive. Because he's very honest,
Yeah.
which I because I do think I'm good. I think I'm great at what I do, but I always want to get better because there's somebody else working hard to get better as well. So I have to stay on top of my game. So uh, every so often, Gus Ramsey, the program director, he'll send out an email and say, "Hey, send your videos in for Dan to review. We'll do a Zoom session on this day at this time, whatever." He tries to do those as often as he can. And for those of us who can't make the meeting, we can still send stuff in, but then Dan will record like a little video for us, giving us the feedback. Excuse me. And he gave me that one, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "This is crazy, man." It was a commentary I did where I was just talking about why sports matter and why they're important to people. Because growing up, all I've heard from people who don't love sports is how pointless they are. And I'm like, you don't understand. Sports have saved my life on multiple occasions. They matter a lot
Oh
to a
yeah.
lot of people. A lot of people. So
So what do you think your biggest goal is going to be moving forward, whether it be in like play by play or reporting, being an analyst? Like what's kind of like the image in your head that you have of what you want to do, or are you just enjoying the ride?
I'm just enjoying the ride because that vision changes every
Oh
single
yeah.
day. Every time I take on a new project, I'm like, oh, I want to do this now. Oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, it just it changes so often that I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna wherever life takes me at this point, I know it'll be the right place. I'm just open to anything
Now,
at
as a
this.
big pro wrestling fan, though, would you ever consider maybe I'd probably suggest AEW commentary over WWE commentary just because Vince would be in your ear 24/7 while you're trying to call matches, which I've heard is just abysmal. It's hellacious. I've talked to a few WWE and former WWE commentators. They're just like, it's literally the most disciplining thing you could do as a play-by-play man is call action for WWE on Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown with that guy in your ear constantly.
Yeah, I think Pat McAfee was talking about it recently, and he was saying the same thing. He was like, "It's a trip." Michael Cole has talked about it a lot in the past as well. I don't know. I don't know. I'm open to anything, and you know, obviously, I know wrestling more than any other sport because that's one thing I've studied and watched the most of, rewatched, watched again, tried to learn all these moves, the commentary styles. Okay, when do I say this? When do I say that? I've mentally prepared for it. I've never been in that chair. Can't imagine how tough it could possibly be. But I will say that if the opportunity came calling, it would be hard for me to turn it down. It would just depend on where I'm at in life at the moment.
Right.
I'm big self ownership, owning my own thing. I do have goals for, I'm from the DC, Maryland area. I do have goals for a sports network that's focused specifically on the sports that are played in this area on the high school level and below. Because I don't know if you saw the documentary Something in the Water. It's about basketball players from PG County.
Right.
There's so much talent that comes out of this area that goes unnoticed, and I wanted to do something about that. So
So
that's
let's get a little bit more into that. What you got going on with the local sports out there? Because obviously this is a big project that you got waiting in the wings.
um, well, when you look at not only the basketball scene with high school and all that stuff, like, I mean, there's a couple guys from the DC area that start for Duke right now. Um, when you look at everything, like even the independent wrestling scene here is phenomenal. James Ellsworth has a wrestling school in this area. Maryland Championship Wrestling is one of the biggest independent wrestling companies in the country. Most like one of the most famous ones. People come there all the time to do autograph signings and wrestle in matches and stuff. I have a buddy. His name's Dorian. Ring name is Chris Slade. Look out for him. He's been wrestling a lot of people. He wrestled T.J. Perkins a couple years back. He just wrestled Rich Swann recently. He's making some major moves, man. I'm super proud of that guy. Just give him a shout out real quick. Dorian Womble, aka Chris Slade. He's incredible, and he's been working so hard. We were at PG together. So the year before I left for the Air Force, me and him were at PG together.
Wow.
That's how long he's been grinding for this dream too.
Wow. Those are some big names, too. Very athletic guys. TJP, I thought he got a bad rap when he was in WWE. Got off to a hot start, and then obviously they just buried him. And then Rich Swann, another guy who I guess he got into a little bit of trouble, but easily one of the best athletes I thought I saw from the cruiserweight division when he was in WWE.
For sure, for sure. And then they're raving about him after they share the ring with him. I'm like, look, man, you're starting to get a lot of respect from a lot of people. I think he was telling me um, that Billy Gunn, I believe, was in attendance for one of his matches and came up and talked to him after the match. Was like, that was phenomenal. Like, you're great. Keep doing this. You're gonna you're gonna get to where you want to be. Um, I couldn't be more proud of him. A lot of my closest friends really are like successful, uh, future business owners and things like that. I like to keep that type of circle around me. But back to the sports scene here. We produce a lot of talent, specifically in basketball. Basketball is we're like a basketball factory here. Jeff Green, Kevin Durant, uh, Michael Beasley. He was really good at one point. That's just to name a few. Not to mention the ones who didn't even make it to the NBA. Len Bias, God rest his soul, they said he could have been better than Jordan. Um, he was produced right here, Greenbelt, Maryland. So it's cool, like seeing, and that's just the sports scene. That's not
Right.
even to mention the entertainment scene. We got Martin Lawrence, Taraji P. Henson, Dave Chappelle. Like they all come from right here. Hopefully one day I can add my name to that list of like those famous names and stuff. But like, man, we produce a lot of talent here. I wanted to get more coverage because there's so many kids with so much more potential than they think that they have.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think have some eyes on them. They know that people are watching. I think they'll put their best foot forward and they'll get noticed like they deserve to.
Anybody could do it as long as they have the confidence to do it and they get backed by the right people. Like you said it moments ago, you're surrounding yourself in a circle of people that you want to be surrounded with, right? People who are like minded and trying to break down the door, not just knock on it, but break down the door, right? Who's one of your favorite play by play voices that kind of inspired you to want to get into broadcast television?
Man. All right. So there's two. This is going to be a little weird. The first one's a little weird. He's a YouTube commentator. Basically, what he does is he plays the video game, the sports video game, and then commentates over it as if like it was live or something
Right.
like that. His name's Mr. Hurricane. He is awesome. I've been watching him since 2012. Um, I've been looking forward to the point where I'm on like a big platform or something, or accepting an award or something like that on like the SPs. I don't know, just something. And I'm like, yeah, I'd like to thank Mr. Hurricane. You know what I mean? I want him to get so much shine because when I heard his voice and I heard Gus Johnson's voice,
Yeah.
those are the two guys right there that catapulted me into this brand new world of getting paid to talk about sports. It's weird. It's weird to get paid to just watch and talk about sports.
It's not
Um,
easy though, man. Like once you get to that point that they're at, like you could either be like, I still love this and this is a dream come true, or you could look at it and be like, man, like it's kind of a job. Like I love doing it, but it's still kind of a job. Have you ever felt like that doing play by play at a smaller level?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'll be completely transparent about that. Um, there's some games where I'm like, oh my God, this game is dragging. Like there's nothing exciting happening.
Yeah.
I'm trying to inject some energy into it, you know what I mean? But it's just boring. Surprisingly, the most fun sport to call, in my opinion, is volleyball. It's volleyball. I can put so much energy into that. And everybody who plays that game, they just go so hard for every single possession. And it makes it easy to like invest yourself into it. Soccer is fun to call sometimes, but when it's a scoreless game, ooh, man, it's not easy.
You just got to know how to storytell in soccer. That's my only thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Surprisingly, I don't like calling basketball. And the reason why is because it's so fast paced that like all the notes that you write down in preparation for the game, it's hard to get a chance to peek at those. So if you don't have some of it like memorized, it's very difficult to keep up with the action because basketball doesn't really stop. You know what I mean? It keeps going. It just keeps going back and forth. That one's very difficult. That's my least favorite one to call.
That's
Uh,
interesting.
Yeah, that gives me burnout very fast. After like two quarters, I'm like, oh man, okay. I need a halftime too.
Yeah, because those notes, you throw those out the window right away. Like you said, like stats are changing constantly. All of a sudden, like, the shooting percentage is up 50% after the first quarter. Like those stats are long gone by that point. I am not a huge fan of calling play by play for basketball either. I will say I do not enjoy soccer just because I grew up a huge baseball guy. Didn't really have time for soccer. Like baseball could drag on for 4 hours. I'm still having a ball. I'm having the time of my life. Just a kid in a candy store. That's a phrase we like to use on this show. Like it's just I could do 18 innings straight and I just wouldn't get bored of it. But soccer, like if it's a scoreless game, just going back and forth, it's just all defense. Like that's when you gotta know stories. You gotta know bios. You gotta know player backgrounds because you'll run out of stuff to talk about very quickly. What was the biggest broadcast blunder you ever had on the air? Like just like mispronouncing a name or accidentally using a curse word or yeah, just muffing something. Because I do it at least once a game.
So we'll,
At
we'll stay
least
in the
once a game.
we'll stay in the soccer realm here. Uh, I like to pull like a little Martin Tyler before the game starts and like give the audience I'll like announce what the starting lineups for each team are. And sometimes that puts me in a bit of a pickle because all of a sudden I'll run into a name and I'm like, oh no. I'm like, how do I pronounce this? Oh no. And I'll just butcher it. And the producer next to us, he's like, hey, it's da 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 da. I'm like, oh, well, you could have told me that before we went on air. That would have been nice. Uh, that's usually where I mess up. So if I try to do that before a soccer game, I usually mess that up. I've kind of just owned it at this point. I try my best. If I can't get it perfect, it is what it is. I'll improve on it during the game. Look, like Gus says, this is where you want to make your mistakes while we're here at this school. So I'm gonna just keep going ahead and making those mistakes and trying to fix them. But that's usually what it is. I've never cursed on air. I've never said anything insensitive on air. Thankfully, I'm pretty careful about the words that I choose. Um, but pronunciations, man, that's a whole new beast. It really is. It's why I'm not even gonna try to touch hockey. Like, no thanks. I'm good.
Yeah. Dude, I think honestly that's probably the best response I've ever had to that question. So props to you for being an utmost professional. Because I've had stories like me personally, it's always tripping over my own words or just forgetting to insert a single letter in the word that I'm saying. Like there was one time instead of shot clock, I said shot cock on the air. It was like one of my first broadcasts ever, basketball too. There was a softball game instead of sacrifice bunt, I said sacrifice blunt. And it was also 420 day, so I brought up the fact that it was 420 day just to support my mistake, but we went to a Christian university, so they did not like that at all.
Oh,
Yeah, I was taken off the air for about a week.
I just actually called the national championships for not the NCAA, but it's the NCCAA. It's all Christian colleges that are in that association. So it was their volleyball national championship down in Orlando. I just called that. It was a 2-day event. They paid me 100 a game. I was like, this is the most I've ever been paid. This is crazy. Yeah, that was a good 2 days. But I definitely was trying to be careful about any words that I used during that broadcast because I'm like, okay, I got to understand my audience a little bit here, and uh, if anything even feels risky, I'm like, nah, I don't need to say it. Whatever, I'll find something else. You know what I mean?
Victor Rojas, who was the play-by-play voice of the Los Angeles Angels, he's now the GM of I think the Frisco Rough Riders, the Double A team for the Texas Rangers. He 2 years, I think it was 2018, so 3 years back, in between innings, there was a Leonard Skinner song playing, probably Simple Man. And in between innings, they just came back on the air on Fox Sports West out in Anaheim. And I guess he's a big rock and roll guy. Turned to his color guy and he just goes, "This is a great fucking song." On the air. On the end, he looked back at his producers, just like, "Are we live?" They're like, "Yeah, we're live." And he got suspended without pay for like a month.
Look, I think that's a little harsh. That's a little harsh because I don't know. Obviously, he didn't mean to do that. He wasn't
No,
that he wasn't trying to offend anybody. Uh, uh, that's too much. I wouldn't have done that. He would
no.
have got his turn talking to,
I,
and
I I could see like a game suspension
or just a written apology is fine.
because I
Like
think he was there for like 10 years, like a decade worth of being your play-by-play guy. Like give him the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, I understand like when you're on the mic, you better be prepared at all times.
yeah, and I get that. I just think suspending him for a month without pay it's overkill. It's overkill. I think people deserve some grace at times. Of course, you have instances like that Reds commentator who saying all types of obscenities. Him, you fire him, cool, get him out of here. Who cares? But
Yeah.
this guy, I mean, I'm sure anybody who was watching it said a lot worse than that. So
I mean, it's a funny clip. You can find it on YouTube. I found it right away. I'm like, I was just laughing hysterically. Some people don't appreciate that, though. You know, there's some broadcasters that are just very, like, nonchalant like us. Then there's others who take it insanely seriously, you know?
look, I'm a military man, so I would appreciate it. I don't have the cleanest mouth. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So I get it. I totally get it. I try to refrain from using any of that on air, though, obviously. But like, come on, I'm not gonna judge somebody for a little slip up when you haven't seen me after a bottle of Taylor Port. I'll tell you that much.
So what did you think of Tom Brenneman then? You touched on him earlier. I don't remember exactly what he said. I think it was a racial slur coming back
Was
from
it a
commercial
racial
break.
slur or a homophobic slur?
One of the two. One of the two.
Honestly, there's no room for that.
No.
There's
The thing that got me was that he was apologizing during play, and Nick Castellanos hit a home run, and he stopped midway through his apology to call the home run call, and then immediately went back into the apology.
I mean, hey, he's still a pro. He might be a jerk, but he's still a pro. But I mean, there's no room for it. I mean, like we're trying to build a culture of acceptance nowadays. You know what I mean? And um, I wouldn't want anybody watching me or watching my broadcast to think like I'm watching somebody who doesn't like me because of the color of my skin or uh, my sexual preference or anything, anything like that. Like, first of all, my motto in life is mind your damn business. Like, what is somebody being gay or straight? How does that change my day? It doesn't. And as long as it doesn't change my day, it's not up for I have no concern about it. I'm a big supporter of them anyway, but even if I wasn't, like, it has nothing to do with me.
No.
You don't need to be using language like that or talking about people or I don't know. I think I just feel like some people kind of forget that they should be focused on themselves, improving themselves, not focusing on trying to change everybody around them, uh, to conform to the things that they want them to be like, if that makes
No.
sense.
The more diverse of a culture you're in, I feel like the more you learn.
Yeah,
As long as you're
I
paying
agree.
attention, right?
I agree. And I got a bunch of different perspectives being in the military. Um, political perspectives, just understanding of where people are coming from, whether they're Biden supporters or Trump supporters or gay or straight or Black Lives Matter or anti-Black Lives Matter. I got their perspectives, and whether we agreed or not didn't matter. It was all about we're having a conversation. I understand you now. You understand me now. And now we're not as angry as we were
Yeah.
before. That's the whole thing. People think that when you have a conversation that somebody's going to have their mind changed by the end of it. That's why nobody wants to have the conversation. Nobody needs to change their mind. People just need to be understanding of the other's perspectives. That's it. Because once you're understanding of the other person's perspectives, boom, there goes the anger. I'm not angry at you anymore because I get where you're coming from. Uh, Anger usually stems from feelings of confusion. Um, Anger and sadness usually stems from feelings of confusion. Like if a loved one passes away, you're not understanding why they're gone, so you're sad and you're angry about it. You know what I mean? It's the same concept with everything else. Once you take away that confusion, you take away everything else. You take away all those bad emotions. You ever been studying for a test? And you're like, what the F am I reading? You know what I mean? So you're mad now. You're pissed off because you're like, yo, like, what is this? You're confused. But as soon as you get that clarity, you might get a tutor or something, or you're like, oh, I didn't see this line. Now everything makes sense.
Yeah.
There goes those feelings of anger and confusion, right? So it's the same concept for everything, man. We just have to have talks with each other.
So I was gonna
There's nothing
say,
wrong.
just talk things through. It's not that difficult. You kind of have to let your guard down a little bit too, especially in like this line of work, play-by-play voice, color commentator. Like you guys got to be on the same page. Like it doesn't matter who you are, how diverse you are, whatever culture you're from too, right? Like you guys got to mesh well in order to sound great on air. Like you want to sound professional, but you want it to click too. You want it to flow. That's what makes it fun, and that's what's going to make the listener and the viewer more entertained throughout a 9 inning baseball game or 4 quarters of a football game. Like that's what's going to make their experience. Do you have a specific style of play by play that you want to integrate, or are you more of along the lines of like you knew who those core voices were, you were inspired by them, and you're kind of trying to take bits and pieces from everyone else and kind of mold it into your own style?
Well, I'd say the excitement part I try to take from Gus Johnson.
Yeah.
Try to mimic his excitement level because he's just on another level. He's amazing. But uh, I try to talk on air the same way I would talk like right now.
Yeah.
Um, they tell us all the time at the school, like, hey, turn that TV voice off, turn that, you know, that singing voice at the end. Like, oh, he scores a touchdown and they're up 7-0. Take that out. Oh, they scored a touchdown. They're up 7-0 now. Wow. Like, look at that. What people at home want to hear is you feeling like you're just sitting there in the booth with these guys and we're all having a conversation
Yep.
about what's going on the field. Once I started treating everything in broadcasting like a conversation, things got so easy for me. I found my voice. I found the conversational tone. That's really my style. I like to have a conversation with my broadcast partner because if we're having a conversation, we're bouncing off each other. And I'm not talking too much. You're not talking too much. The audience isn't getting tired of our voices because like we're having a conversation. Um, a lot of people might not like them, but I love listening to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. I love emulating what they do because they sound like two best friends who travel the road together and watch football and talk about it.
Yep.
That's what I want. That's what I want.
I mean, they've been doing it 15 plus years too. It helps, consistently getting to do that every single week. But that's the dream. I think that's the dream. I think it's difficult at, our stage where our color commentators aren't necessarily former players. Sometimes we're lucky with that. Sometimes, though, I'm stuck being the color analyst for soccer when I don't even know all the rules. It's difficult to get into a good call flow if you're not on the same page and you don't know what's going on.
I've been in that position.
That's probably the most frustrating thing, is having a color commentator knowing that like you're both just starting out, didn't play the game. It's not fun.
It's frustrating. What I try to do, I'm so serious about this too. I'm so serious. A lot of these sports that I call now, I taught myself the rules by playing the video games. And so now I know what I'm talking about because I played with the different formations. I know the different strategies and stuff because the video game taught me.
Yep.
I became a hockey fan after playing NHL and I learned all the rules and stuff. So now when I watch it with my actual hockey friends, I'm not looking stupid. I'm like, yo, yeah, that's offsides, man. That's off. He crossed the line before the puck did. Like, get that guy. And they're like, oh my God, he knows it. He's black. He knows hockey. And I'm like, yes, I do.
Like, I've made that mistake before on NHL 16.
Yeah. And like with soccer, it was the same concept, man. It was like, I played the game to death, and I taught myself everything. And, I have a deep love for video games. I've been playing them since I was in elementary school, never stopped. And I've learned so much from them that has just been very helpful at this stage in my career when, like you said, I haven't played these games before, but now I have an idea of what I'm talking about because I've played them in a different form, you know. Now the things that I'm missing is I can't talk about what the locker room culture is like,
Right.
or the effects of traveling a long distance or anything like that. I haven't been able to experience that, unfortunately, but we do the best with what we can do. And a lot of times we're still able to create a fantastic broadcast. And I've had the opportunity to work with some good friends down there, and because we have that natural chemistry, because we always hang out all the time, we bounce off each other really well. And then some of them just happen to know a lot about the game that we're calling, which is super helpful. And I'm like, okay, you do color, I'll take play by play, and we'll just do that the whole game because it'll sound better.
Exactly. And if you got good chemistry, you may as well just kind of not both be play by play, but like both call it as you see it, and just
Mhm.
know when someone's gonna talk. That way, you guys aren't talking over each other. That's kind of something I tried to incorporate in just doing college play by play stuff, because your color commentator might be less knowledgeable about you overall. Like you have those experiences, and you're just like, should I just do it by myself here? Like, are you gonna contribute? We had a few of those.
I've done that. We had some like, so of course I'm not going to say any names. I don't want to, embarrass anybody or anything like that. We're all there to learn, but some of the guys have a lot more learning to do than other guys do. Some of them are better in the booth than other guys are. There's things that I'm still working on that other guys are like miles ahead of me on as well. Um, but what it all comes down to is like you gotta talk, man. I've been in the booth with some guys who just they don't say anything. I'm like, why are you here? you know? And I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm calling the game by myself today. So I'll just shift into a role. I'm very adaptive to my environments. The things that are happening around me, I can change in an instant based off of what I'm observing. And if I observe that my partner is being a mute today, then I'm like, okay, uh, I know how to adjust to this. I'll just cover both. And when he
Yeah.
wants to chip, he can chip in, but I'm not gonna allow too much dead space to be happening, on the air. So
All it take if he's bad, it makes you look bad, right?
exactly.
At the end of the
No,
day, no one wants that. I mean, I feel like we've both had those experiences where it's just like, man, like that could have been a great call. Like in that regard, like what's your prep style like? Like compared to like a TV broadcast for like Rollins College, or you're at the school, or like just like a high school broadcast where like three people are listening. Like, do you have different styles of game prep?
my prep is always the same, but it's based on what information I can find.
Yeah,
Struggle with college and high school and stuff like that is sometimes you're at the mercy of what information you can find. Now, college, thankfully, they do update their websites a lot. So all the stats are there, their bios are there. Cool. All right, I got everything I need now from this website. When it comes to high school, because I have done high school as well, that is a struggle. Sometimes you just got to show up there and just freestyle
yep.
because the information that you try to find, it's not there, or the
Or
high
it's
school
not
website,
accurate.
or yeah, or it's not accurate. So, um, you know, I, I I try to treat every broadcast the same way, because every broadcast it's an honor to be in that chair and be doing what I'm doing. Um, but sometimes like the broadcast doesn't love you back, you know. and when you're in that situation, you just have to adapt to what you've been given. We did
Yeah.
a high school all-star game down in Tampa about 9 months ago, and we couldn't find any information, man. It was a struggle, but we were like, you know what? We're gonna make sure we at least know their names and their high school, and we're just gonna talk about what's happening on the floor in front of us. We're not really gonna worry about the other stuff, like their bios and everything like that, because there's nothing we could really do about it.
Yeah. Those are the most frustrating. I mean, literally 7 days ago, I had a men's basketball broadcast for high school, and these guys don't have any info. Like, even on the website that we have out here, like, the rosters are incorrect, the numbers are incorrect. And about 5 minutes before game time, our HDMI cord blew out. So I had to do the entire game radio style,
Well, that's lovely.
not knowing the rosters.
That's perfect. That's exactly what you want.
I mean, I guess it's a good experience. Puts you your back against the wall, but it wasn't ideal.
Yeah, that sounds rough,
A
man.
radio broadcast and you don't know any of the players' names.
Oh man, yeah, I can't imagine that. I've I've never done radio play by play. I have done the radio show for like pregame, halftime, and postgame. That's fun. That's pretty fun to
I mean,
do.
it forces you to talk.
It does.
Even if you're reiterating and repeating yourself, like it's okay because maybe the viewer just tuned in. Just keep painting that picture, keep repainting that empty canvas so that they know what's going on.
I mean, you really learn the definition of stamina when you do a radio broadcast.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed. Like I tip my hat off to anybody who does like radio play by play as their full time job because much respect to them. The amount of observation that takes, and like I said, the stamina to talk for that long nonstop. You can't take a break. In TV, you can take a break. You can shut up because like sometimes the game will do the talking for you, especially in soccer. That's the best thing about soccer is you have so many opportunities to let it breathe. But when you're doing it on radio, it's like, man, if a feather falls on the field, you have to tell the fans that feather fell on the field. You got to
Yep.
really be, you know, you have to observe everything that's going on around you. And it's something I hope to challenge myself with it one day and actually do one. But man,
I'm
it's
honestly shocked at the Dan Patrick School of Broadcasting. You guys haven't experienced radio broadcasting yet from being such
well,
a radio talk show host.
well, we do the stuff with WPRK down in Winter Park, and we, like I said, we do the pregame, halftime, and postgame shows for the basketball games. But Rollins has actually had the same duo for their Rollins radio
Yeah.
broadcasts for decades now. It's been the same too, and they're awesome. So there's no way we're getting in there. You know what I mean? But we are able to do the live broadcast where you can go on Sunshine State Conference digital network and watch the games there, and we'll be commentating over them like that. But as far as the radio, man, those guys are untouchable, and I see why. I see why they're very good at what they do, and they have a lot of chemistry. You could tell they've been doing it together for a long
Oh
time.
my God. I mean, especially in the big markets, like if you want to be a play-by-play voice for the New York Yankees, good luck. They have their next 3 broadcasters lined up for the next 6 decades, right?
Their children's children are lined up for those
Right.
jobs.
I mean,
So
literally, the guy who's grooming to be the next play-by-play voice has been in their organization for over 20 years already. Just to tell you how hard that is. Like Vin Scully just retires. Joe Davis comes in for the Los Angeles Dodgers. First broadcaster they've had in 70 plus years. That
yeah,
wasn't Vin Scully.
it's it's a new take on inheritance right there.
So if you were to be offered a role, let's say ESPN, Fox Sports, WWE, out of those three, which one would you take?
Oh man, that's a great question. Probably Fox Sports. One reason is because they're out in LA. ESPN's in cold New York, but I have a lot of respect for a lot of the stuff they do at all three of those companies. Fox Sports, of course, with Fox NFL Sunday, everything that they do there. I'd love to be a part of that. I'm telling you. Like if I got on there with Terry, Howie, Michael, all of them, man, I'm like, sign me up. I'll do whatever you get. I'll be your runner if you want me to. You know
Seems
what I
like a
mean? Just
blast, honestly. Honestly, by the time, let's say like 5, 10 years down the road, Barstool Sports will probably have their own line, their own streaming service. That would be an interesting one to call because you basically can say whatever the hell you want on their
yeah,
platform. But
yeah, which
at
is
the
not.
same time, it's not what you were taught, right? It would be different.
Yeah, it would be different, but I am what I would consider a outspoken person, but I'm also very strategic. I'm not gonna say what I really want to say about certain things until I'm at a certain point where I can afford to do that.
Right.
And I think that's just the smartest way to go about it. Um, but it like say I put in all my work. I'm 45 years old, and they're like, hey, here's a $100 million contract to do this show for 10 years. Cool. Now I can say whatever I want because I'm financially secure at this point. And of course, like I already told you, I'm not gonna say anything offensive about anybody or any group of people. So that's not what I mean when I say whatever I want. But I'm saying like give honest opinions. Like how did I feel about what Stephen A said on his show the other day? Or how do I feel about the direction of the NFL and their COVID-19 protocols and things like that?
Right.
Those very sensitive topics that can get you canceled. Anything can get you canceled nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very careful about what opinion you share. Um, Really, it all goes back to mind your damn business. how does this affect you? If it doesn't affect you, you shouldn't be speaking on it right now unless you're getting paid to do so. Right now, I'm not getting paid to do so, so I ain't speaking on nothing, you know. But but maybe one day, eventually, I will get paid for that, and then I can start sharing how I feel about certain things.
Honestly, it doesn't even take your own opinion at this point. As long like you could just bring it up and say something that will set someone off, and all of a sudden you're canceled.
Yeah,
It's a tough gig to have as a play-by-play sports announcer on a big national network like Fox Sports or ESPN or NBC for that matter. So you could
and
say
that's why
the slightest thing that could piss someone off.
you're 100% right, because and that's one of those reasons why those networks, I wouldn't say intimidate me, but they kind of like put me off just a little bit, because I'm like, oh man, can I say what I want to say, or am I going to be controlled in what I can say? And then when I do say those things that I was told to say, oh man, I get canceled. Like it's just, I'm like, I don't know how to go about it. Which is why earlier I was saying, I'm just wherever life takes me, it takes me. I don't really have a end destination in mind right now, except for my graduation date. I graduate in September of this year coming up, but I'm really enjoying the ride. I'm surrounded by amazing people and instructors who just care so much about each one of us and what we're doing, and they really just want to see us succeed. They want to see us become stars. They want to see us reach our full potential. And man, I have so much appreciation for them just actually seeing me and noticing that I'm talented, because at some point when nobody notices it, you start to doubt it a little bit. But that constant reassurance of like, hey, we just saw your production from the other day. That was phenomenal. Having random people come up to me, going into a new class, meeting a teacher I haven't met yet, and they're like, "Oh, Alfonso, yeah, I heard about you, man. Heard about you. Good reputation." I'm like, "Really? Wow." You know, it's humbling and it's exciting, and man, this journey is crazy, man.
I
This journey is
mean,
crazy.
you're going to go out with a bang this year. And obviously, that's an unbelievable environment to be around when everybody's supporting each other, everybody's giving themselves opportunities, everybody's looking out for one another. I guess I'll leave you with this since we started talking about wrestling at the beginning. What is your dream match that you'd love to call in any promotion
Ooh,
between two superstars?
um, if you give me Roman Reigns and actually, this Roman Reigns versus CM Punk would be the dream match.
Really?
This Roman Reigns right here versus this CM
This
Punk. This
CM Punk, really?
CM Punk that just obliterated MJF. I don't care what anybody says. There's only one man who had a good promo in that back and forth, and that was CM Punk. MJF got shredded.
MJ, I
Absolutely.
mean, he's 24 years old, man. For him being 24 years old and him having the skills that he has on the mic is unbelievable. Like and I do think that CM Punk hit it right on the head when he called him a less famous Miz, because it's obvious he dresses the exact same way, same exact haircut too. But MJF is insanely talented,
He is.
insanely talented.
He's a much better wrestler than I thought he was going to be. He's much more athletic than I thought he was going to be. Because when you look at his look, he doesn't look like he can do a backflip. You know what I mean? He just looks like a classic heel, and there's nothing wrong with that. But he just looks like a classic heel that's going to put you in a headlock, and then they're really good on the mic. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And like those heels were essential to building the business, though. But when I saw him actually wrestle Darby and he's doing backflips and all this crazy stuff, I'm like, oh wow, okay, uh, he's better than I thought he was. But maybe him versus the Miz would be another one. I don't know. I'd just like to be on commentary for their promo that they do.
It'd be like that Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. I was gonna go this version of Roman Reigns versus AJ Styles because they had some pretty epic clashes back like 5 years ago.
Yeah, they did.
I was ringside for one of them. It was an Extreme Rules match in
That match.
Newark.
Yeah, and Seth
It
Rollins
was
came back that.
unbelievable. And like I was literally turning around, going back to the car, and all of a sudden, just you hear the pop from the crowd, and we're like, "What?" Everybody's going nuts. was like a
Yeah.
9-month layoff. It was insane. And getting to witness that ringside is nothing like that compared to watching it in the nosebleeds. It's an entirely different ball game.
Oh, okay. I don't want to get into your pockets here, but how much did those tickets run you? Because every time I even look for those, they're gone already. So I never know how much they cost.
It was one of my buddy's birthdays, and he bought the tickets. I have no idea. I got out of that skin free.
Nice. Hey, man. All power to you, man.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding? I always got the hookup. Man. But I appreciate you coming on the show, spending the last hour talking some pro wrestling, talking some broadcasting, man. I always love picking the brains of other, aspiring play-by-play voices to see what they want to do down the line. And obviously, with your setup right now, you're in good hands. So it's awesome to see you kicking ass, doing what you're doing in play-by-play. Alphonso McCree Jr., where can we find you on social media, man?
At Alphonso McCree Jr. My Facebook page, I also have Alphonso McCree Jr. And on YouTube, Alphonso McCree Jr. If you guys want to check out, I'll leave you with this, the 50-day challenge that I did. I uploaded to YouTube for 50 days straight to challenge myself to try to figure out what I wanted to do. And that's a big part of how I got to where I am now. If you want to check that out and then challenge yourselves to do a 50-day challenge as well, I really do encourage it. It led to a lot of great things for me.
Yeah, I mean, I checked out your channel just the other day. A ton of different content, too.
Yeah.
5 most embarrassing stories. That one was good.
Yeah. Oh, man. The fact that one of those is how I met my wife is pretty crazy. So it was worth it.
See, you know how to storytell. That's the most important thing about play-by-play, man. You already know. It doesn't matter what story you're telling. You know how to do it.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. This was episode 462 of the podcast. Remember, we are sponsored by Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale, Arizona. Zach, first of all, Merry Christmas and hit the lights, man.